Many of people say we don't like contemporary architecture at all because all architecture after 1910 is ugly. But for me, because I'm looking every time with the eye how I draw that or this stage in the town, I see a lot of situations where contemporary architecture is a very, very hard but also very interesting contrast to historical surrounding, and I think it is also quality. It's like not gymnastic. I draw not because I have to draw. I draw if I like to notice something, and in between this normal people comes boss with his house and looks completely different, looks completely crazy, absolute outstanding personality. So I can imagine he had his problems to involve himself, to integrate himself in the society. The house as itself is like a head, like a mind, because the boss was, from my point of view, absolutely outstanding. This very complicated surface going against climate outside and has to be much more protected against climate as a very simple form. I created like a crazy idea that the Colosseum begins to be the new center of the city, Rome, with a lot of people are coming down the earth, over the earth with the tubes going out, and Colosseum is like a middle part. We are the power. But then one day somebody would come and say, where is the contemporary time? Where is the 2000s?
Hello, Sergei. I see that you are surrounded by many of your drawings, and I want to tell you that I also have some of your books right here.
Thank you.
So
yes, in fact, thank you very much, Vladimir, that you make with me this interview. And in fact, I'm in my working space in the office of Tchoban Force Architects, and on the wall are exactly the drawings. They are not original drawings; they are copies, but still from some drawings what I made, and even from one will be exhibited, even from two will be exhibited in the exhibition in Paul Rudolph House.
That's exactly right. I want to begin with this question. What sparked your interest in drawing? How old were you when you first picked up a pencil and started drawing?
I was like 10, and my grandmother brought my first sketches, that was portraits. There were no buildings, but portraits, brought to some consultations at the school, as a school for young talents by Academy of Art of Saint Petersburg. And the teacher who consulted the very young children, he told, okay, it's maybe not great, but let's look, maybe we can develop something from him. And 2 years I was going for these consultations with my grandmother. My grandmother was really diamond to me, and she could work with me. She could try to bring me this drawing. She was not an artist, or she was not somebody, no architect. I had no architects and artists in my family, but she was somehow interested, and she wanted to bring me to some talent what I had. And 2 years I was by these consultations by the teacher, and after that I was going to exam, and coming in the first but normally fifth class of this special school. So 4 years I was studied in the normal school, and from the fifth year I began to study in this art and normal school. So we studied all together. So artists lessons and also normal lessons like mathematics, physics, and language and so on. But also we had a lot of lessons and hours. We have drawn and painted, and we are going to some sketching outside of the school. And by this sketching, I learned to love architecture. I was born in the old part of Petersburg with a lot of historical architecture with very dense atmosphere, and I could already create, breath the architecture. But after I began to draw, I could, with the time, like I was already 12 or 13, I was already by first practice in the town, could draw really in the town, the monuments, historical monuments, even new architecture, new constructions in Leningrad, that time Petersburg. And I loved then just to draw architecture. Since that time, I began to create and to develop, let's say, my tools in the drawing architecture.
So you became a professional drafter quite early, I see.
Professional, I don't know if I still professional, but I began to draw, to be draftsman, like to draft buildings quite early, right?
And, you know, many architects, in fact, come to the profession through drawing, some playing with their, you know, cubes and shapes early on. What is unusual about you is that you never stopped. You continue drawing. And I want to ask you, so how much time you devote to this interest, even now?
No, I don't stop. For me, is drawing like writing. So for me, is drawing like a diary. What I follow, not every day, of course, but if I notice some idea or some situation or news I was very impressed about, I draw some composition what comes in my mind, and also some free fantasies, but also some locations I have seen and observations I made, and then drawn historical contemporary buildings, situations with different buildings, and that I make more times a week, like not every day. Maybe it can be 1 week I don't draw, and then I draw nearly every day, or I draw 2-3 days a week. Not, it's like not gymnastic. I draw not because I have to draw. I draw if I like to notice something in a form of drawing composition, what I find interesting and find reasonable to be drawn as a piece of graphic.
And especially when you travel, I know that when you travel, you devote quite a bit of time to drawing on location.
Yes, right. As if I travel, of course, I see new things. For example, now I was on Java Island, and I've seen some very nice and very important and very really impressive historical monuments. But the same could happen. I was in Brazil and have seen monuments by Oscar Niemeyer, or I was in Buenos Aires and have seen a wonderful library by Clorinda Testa. And if I am impressed, I draw. We were together in Singapore. You know, I've seen quite nice panoramic views from my room. Or after that, by going with my friend in the evening, I've seen the same situation, but from another side of the water, and I've made like 7 or 8 drawings. But it's not a point of sketchbooks. I make also sketchbooks. I have now also, I'm sitting in my room. That is a sketchbook. I make drawings nearly every day to notice something I like to notice. But that is not a drawing what I mean drawing. It is like really a sketch. It's like a notice. But the drawing is normally a piece of paper what I archived after that, and then it is a piece of memory, let's say.
When I look at many of your drawings, one strong impression that comes up is how you address and mix various architectural layers of history, styles, scales, materiality, and so on. I'm particularly drawn to the series of your drawings that you call Imprint of the Future. So they intertwine the language of the time of Piranesi and our own time. If you could talk about that series and what is it you're trying to achieve by bringing those contrasts together?
Well, the contrast I am not bringing. It is the contemporary architecture what bringing these contrasts, because we are speaking since over 100 years, not the same language as was spoken before many centuries, and I just notice it, and I believe everybody knows it, but not many people are somehow interested in that situation. Many of people say we don't like contemporary architecture at all because all architecture after 1910 is ugly, especially after the Second World War. After war, modern architecture is completely ugly. Give us, please, the architecture of 19th century or beginning of 20th century. Many of them say, okay, the architecture today is so as it today, as we can do nothing, but we don't notice also this controversial language what contemporary architecture speaks to its historical surrounding. But for me, because I'm looking every time with the eye how I draw that or this stage in the town, I see a lot of situations where contemporary architecture is a very hard but also very interesting contrast to historical surrounding, and I think it is also quality. I would say, and I have written a book, 30 to 70, Architecture as a Balance Act, and in this book I tried to explain that all architectural history had a quite different development as now, and this contrastful harmony what we got to win in the last 100 years, it's not only problem, but it's also quality. In comparison to the picture is one time ready, like a print of Piranesi. It's one time ready, it is ready masterpiece. But for town, the town is never ready. And you cannot say town is a masterpiece and nothing will be moved in this town. Of course, you can make it maybe in Venice, what is not, from my point of view, is not a town anymore. It is like a heritage, like a museum under free sky. But for normal town like Berlin, like my birthday town, Saint Petersburg, like Paris, you have every time some implementing some new things are coming in this town, and it is a picture what is never going to the end. So it is a masterpiece. Then I made a big series of drawings where I got the elements of Vedute di Roma by Piranesi and overloaded them with some contemporary elements what are speaking like potpourri of languages of contemporary architecture. And that became to be a big series, what is now in many museums, in Royal Institute of British Architects, in the Albertina, in the Kupfersche Cabinet and Art Academy of Berlin, in the Instituto della Grafica, so in many museums. What I wanted to express, how European town should be developed, with a lot of being afraid. Oh, it comes and we are not sure. Let's go deeper. Let's go that we are unknown, unseen. Nobody sees the contemporary architecture. We are very modest, much more modest as every time before. Okay, we could be, but then one day somebody would come and say, where is the contemporary time? Where is the 2000s? We don't see anything. But I think another way is quite important to express modernity, to express like by every page of the history of architecture, every page speaks about the history, about nowadays of the history, and that is normal, even if some contemporary buildings are really coming in the very hard relationship, contrastful relationship to their historical relatives.
Yeah, I like this idea that the city is never frozen and it's constantly being transformed, and you accentuate that in your drawings.
Yes.
What
exactly.
I like about your drawings also is that you use them to make specific observations and comments about the past, present, and future. Some of your drawings were produced for various visionary competitions, such as for the House of Bosch. If you could talk about that specific project, and I understand that not only you created a series of drawings for the competition, but you continued working in that direction for a couple of years, even for yourself, for your own projects. Visionary.
Yeah, of course. I tell you, I draw every time if I think there is some interesting point I like to print out. And for example, competition, how I would create today the house of this great artist. This could be some interesting idea if you make all spaces like heroes of Bosch, of like figures from his pictures. And if you make a section of the house, you see very interesting outline of the spaces what are never right angled, but have really crazy outline, like a heroes in his pictures. And the house as itself is like a head, like a mind, because the Bosch was, from my point of view, absolutely outstanding. Even if the language that time, you can see also by Lucas Cranach, you can see is by Bruegel the Elder, but still, I find it every time like an absolute outstanding personality. So I can imagine he had his problems to integrate himself in the society of the normal people. So I got this vision to say there are normal people, intellectual or not intellectual, however, and they are like a normal houses. And in between these normal people comes Bosch with his house and looks completely different, looks completely crazy. And his ideas maybe or his style of life is completely crazy. And that's I wanted to introduce, I wanted to print out. The same as by Rethinking Colosseum, what should be rethink to Colosseum. Colosseum is a heritage, staying as a ruin, what should be rethink. But I created like a crazy ideas that the Colosseum begins to be the new center of the city, Rome, with a lot of people are coming down the earth, over the earth with the tubes going out, and Colosseum is like a middle part, like somebody like a hero of town where all power, all interest, all interest of sightseeing is concentrated on this place. The people are coming in, they're going out. It's like a middle point of all interests. So it means I'm looking around and I'm seeing some interesting points. And I do some fantasies, or maybe I don't do because I don't see the interest for me. I don't see the picture behind this. Normally I look through something and I have a picture in the mind, or I have no picture. And I have no picture, I leave it, and when I have a picture, I draw them.
Yeah, I like how all of these drawings are dealing with different times. So you're constantly exploring this idea how different times could coexist. And so, for example, in the House of Bosch, you explore this idea how a house, how to withstand the pressure of being like every other house, just to be ordinary, right? So to celebrate
the ordinary and not ordinary, pragmatic and non-pragmatic. That is every time a point. Also, inside of one building, you have pragmatic sides and unpragmatic sides. So that's every time the life is consisting from pragmatic and not pragmatic moments.
Another competition you participated in was for the club of 300 spectators.
I was invited, as many architects at that time, from Russian Museum of Architecture, and was a part of bigger exhibition and a club. Of course, the worker club is an important point of constructivist time. That's why they wanted to recall this idea of club, and to say how contemporary architecture, it was like for 20 years, would go with this idea. And for me, of course, the situation with heritage was not only constructivism and history, but also, for example, overflowing of historical rivers, where a lot of localities would be coming under the water by connecting of Volga River and Moscow River. So many churches on the higher places, on the hills, were coming like a gate towers over the water. If you even maybe go today over the water, over the river, you could see some single churches. It was really, in the same time, ugly because the heritage was in that situation completely avoided, completely wasted out. But on the other side, it was also somehow a very tragical, impressive picture. What I've seen it by myself as I was going with the ship along, like 2001. I have seen it by driving with a ship from Moscow River to the Volga River, and that's why I've thought, what was a time where these clubs were created? It was, from the one point of view, a time of very progressive ideas, but from the other side, it was a very tragic time with a lot of people who were killed, with a lot of heritage were demolished, churches, old towns, because of this very, very negative, powerful moving in all country, where people have said, we are the power, we go over any power, and we move rivers back, we do what we can, we forget religion, and so on and so on. And that ideas, together with a positive, maybe very progressive ideas of constructivism, with unusual forms like round forms in section, I tried to bring together to give the impression creativity, yes, but in which surrounding.
Yeah, very impressive futuristic forms kind of floating over that landscape.
Yeah, floating over this tragedy.
Flooded.
Overloaded tragic situation, yes.
And then there is another drawing called Dead End, which shows an upturned palace of the Soviets with the statue of Lenin floating.
That is about Soviet history. What I noticed from my childhood, the Soviet history, what is also ruined today, but that very powerful ruin, and how the people today are going with. It is like, also, I wanted to express that the history is still a very big part of our reality. This monuments, this way of thinking, like in the Stalin time, with the huge monuments, with very totalitarian way of some thinking, could be also a point what is now ruined, but still somehow in life. And that's the idea that these ruins are still very important part. What have also a very magnetic relationship to everybody. So this small sheep has all river around, but try to go just in the tunnel, where at the end is a dead end, because at the end is Lenin sculpture, and no way is passing through.
Yeah.
But still this big arch, this monumentality still is very magnetic.
Many of your drawings and all of the drawings we've been talking about right now in this conversation employ architectural sections and sectional perspectives. They cut through colonnades, domes, buildings, even parts of cities. These sections are very revealing, and they open up buildings to let us see not only the spaces, but also hidden meanings inside. For example, what is revealed are profiles of certain political figures. If you look carefully to
not even political,
you could talk about that.
Yeah, just people. Also, we have now a very tragic situation, a lot of wars around the world, on many, many places. And it looks like the people became the war in mind. Also, like you make a section, like by Bosch house, you make a section of the mind, and you see inside the ruin, what became to be a ruin from the bombing, from the rockets, and so on. That is a very tragic idea, but also like a symbol of situation. War is one time more today as a point of our reality, and that is very, very tragic and in very, very big scale. And that is what I wanted to express, that it looks like the people became one time more war in mind as a part of what is realizable. From my point of view, is war unrealizable. Is it something what is completely unacceptable? But somehow it looks like many people find it one time more acceptable, what I think is very tragic. And in this case, it became to be also architecture. So architecture of human mind, let's say.
I want to finish with one drawing that I understand serves you as an architectural manifesto. You call it Pragmatic Versus Unpragmatic. It is very complex on the inside and very
reduced, let's say, outside. And that is also, okay, from one point we are speaking about ecology a lot. But we should be clear, if we make very complicated buildings from the shape, from outside, that buildings couldn't be ecological, because this very complicated surface going against climate outside and has to be much more protected against climate as a very simple form. So that's it. So simple form is much more ecological because it's lighter, because it's simpler to build, and because it's better protected against out climate. Like if it's warm or cold, we don't try to be elaborated with our clothing. So we try to be reduced and minimalistic with our clothing or maximalistic, but very reduced from the surface. So, but inside, if you are protected from the climate already, for example, in the atrium, you can be, in that case, very impressive and make a lot of things, because there you don't have to fight against climate. You have to create very interesting atmosphere in already safe from the climate space. And that is the idea of this also section, because only in section you can show outside against inside, pragmatic against unpragmatic, and say, okay, if we like to be ecological to 100%, what maybe is not so handsome and not so elaborated, not so nice and not so magnetic as some sculptural buildings, some icons, okay, no. But if we speak about ecology, I believe outside quite modest but elegant, and inside could be very impressive and very complicated and very interesting from the space, from the shapes, and so on. That's I wanted to impress in my this sketch section.
This drawing, Pragmatic versus Unpragmatic, is a kind of exploration of your manifesto, but you follow through by realizing some of the projects where you follow that exact strategy, right? Such as
I follow the strategy in some project where I like to express this strategy. And for example, in this strategy, I developed Edge, and it became the most ecological building in the German-speaking space. So this strategy was completely approved. But of course, sometimes in the town, in the very magnetic points, you have to be more expressive. You have to be more expressive also outside. Otherwise, old town will be boring. But to be strong by ecology, many of the buildings should be simple outside and could be more complicated inside, and should be simple outside, because that is the shortest way to be saved from the very big wasting out of carbon dioxide and wasting out of money, energy, and so on and so on. So far, we have to think about it. We have to create prototypes. But in the same time, of course, some buildings, cultural buildings, important buildings, churches, big public buildings, they should be, of course, very impressive also from the outline, like I show it in the Piranesi fantasies, in the Imprint of the Future. That is also our language. But in the same time, we have to be quite careful not to use this language everywhere. What is the tendency? Try to use everywhere that language, because that's only what is interesting. But in this way, we put out a lot of this gray footprint and carbon dioxide, and in this case, our ecology is more in danger as we do it pragmatic against unpragmatic inside.
Thank you, Sergei.
Thank you very much.